Yeah, bonjour, hi. It is Inauguration Day, 20th day of January 2021. Every 4 years, the President of the United States is sworn into office, and today it's Joe Biden. Congratulations to the President-elect. They spoke last night. I'll play you a little bit of their memorial service for those who have suffered and died during the COVID pandemic. The biggest news of the morning is not what you might think. You might think it's the pardons. President Trump issued 143 pardons and commutations, including of Steve Bannon, Elliot Broidy, and a few others. All pardons are news, but not for many people except those who receive it. The biggest news was yesterday's declaration by Secretary of State Pompeo that China is committing genocide against the Uyghur Muslims. And by the way, they also identified genocide against other ethnic groups. The Wall Street Journal reports the Trump administration concluded that China has committed genocide and crimes against humanity against the Uyghur ethnic group, delivering a forceful condemnation of Beijing over a mass repression campaign that is yet to prompt tough international action. This morning in the Wall Street Journal, Secretary Pompeo has a commentary, which you really need to hear. I've got a lot of great audio. I will play it for you. President Trump gave a fine farewell address yesterday. President-elect Biden gave good remarks last night. Tony Blinken, the new Secretary of State, incoming, not yet voted on, made some very reassuring statements at the confirmation hearing yesterday. There's a lot of news going on, as there always will be at the beginning of an administration. But this column by Secretary of State Pompeo, there's no better way to leave office than by condemning moral atrocity before it spreads and before the world decides simply that China is too big to call out. The Chinese Communist Party, writes Secretary Pompeo, like other authoritarian regimes, has never cherished human life. That's clear from the well-known horrors the party inflicted on the Chinese people during the Great Leap Forward and the Cultural Revolution, the Tiananmen Square massacre, and decades of repression of Tibetans and Falun Gong practitioners. Yet the free world has become dangerously inured to this bloody history. So long as we remain silent, Communist Chinese party elites will continue to commit human rights abuses against the people of China with impunity. We cannot allow this cycle to continue. Today, after careful deliberation, I have determined that the People's Republic of China, under the direction and control of the Chinese Communist Party, has committed genocide and crimes against humanity against the predominantly Muslim Uyghurs and other ethnic and religious and minority groups, including ethnic Kazakhs and Kyrgyz. This announcement is the result of an exhaustive year-long investigation that has spanned the globe and benefited from the efforts of government and non-governmental partners to document this nightmare, as well as bipartisan support of Congress. The facts are chilling. Since 2017, the Communist Party has forced more than 1 million people into internment camps in the Xinjiang region, on the pretext that they need to be, quote, re-education. Arbitrary and indefinite detentions lasting months or years at a time are common inside this modern gulag. Survivors tell of torture, sexual abuse, including rape, forced labor, the use of electric shock to extract false confessions, unexplained deaths in custody. Uyghurs scarcely fare better outside the camps. Xinjiang has become a proving ground for an Orwellian surveillance state. Of particular repugnance to pro-life Americans, and key in my determination that the atrocities in Xinjiang rise to the level of genocide, is the Communist Party's efforts to stop Uyghur women from giving birth via forced abortion and sterilization. Involuntary contraception measures, such as forced insertions of intrauterine devices, are also deployed. They want to destroy us as a people, said one such victim. The party has coerced Uyghur women to marry non-Uyghur men and separated Uyghur children from their families. Birth rates in Xinjiang dropped roughly 24% from 2018 to 2019, compared with a 4.2% decline across China overall. Not every campaign of genocide involves gas chambers or firing squad. Throughout this campaign, Communist Party apparatchiks have denied international observers unhindered access to Xinjiang and dismissed reliable reporting on the abuses. Xi Jinping's regime has justified the camps as necessary for educating local populations, countering terrorism, and alleviating poverty. The party has even promoted its attempts to curb Uyghur births as a women's empowerment effort. The truth is far darker. The Communist Party's persecution of Uyghurs, like its persecution of other religious minority groups, is simply an effort to sinicize and eliminate the Uyghur faith, culture, and population. The U.S. has led the world in exposing these horrors and promoting accountability for the perpetrators. In March of 2019, we co-hosted the first of several events at the United Nations alongside Canada, Germany, the Netherlands, and the United Kingdom to alert the world to this vile mass attack on human dignity. We've issued a business advisory and withhold release orders to assure American supply chains don't support Uyghur forced labor. We've unleashed sanctions against senior Communist Party leaders responsible for the repression across Xinjiang, the only country to have done so. We are also the first country to label the repression taking place in Xinjiang as genocide and crimes against humanity. Thomas Jefferson, America's first Secretary of State, wrote, "The mass of mankind has not been born with saddles on their backs, nor a favored few booted and spurred, ready to ride them legitimately by the grace of God. The genocidal blows struck against the Uyghurs aren't localized to Xinjiang. They are also an offense against the concept of universal human dignity that America's founders championed. In the anguished cries from Xinjiang, the U.S. hears the echoes of Nazi Germany, Rwanda, Bosnia, and Darfur. May all nations that hear them likewise bear witness to the stain of the century, the Chinese Communist Party's genocide and crimes against humanity." That's the Secretary of State. That's candid, that's complete, that is irrefutable, and other nations ought to follow. And by the way, I applaud Secretary Designate Blinken for endorsing that yesterday. We'll play that a little bit later. In the Washington Post this morning, there's also a story. China turbocharges bid to discredit Western vaccines, spread conspiracy theories. Are you getting the picture? From Jerry Shi. Europe and Australia should reject the hasty American vaccines linked to elderly deaths, say Chinese scientists. Western media is refusing to investigate the Pfizer shot's dangerous, fumed a statewide television anchor. The coronavirus could be a plot involving former U.S. Secretary of Defense Donald Rumsfeld, suggested a state editor. And the real origin of the virus, perhaps the U.S. Army's Fort Detrick should be investigated, intoned Foreign Ministry spokesman. 1 year after the coronavirus was widely reported in China, including on this show 1 year ago, ahead of every other media outlet as far as I know, repeatedly and daily, the country's state media and officials are again pitching a flood of theories about its origins not in China and which vaccines are safe, not American. The reports claimed by officials and checked online this month appear to be part of a renewed Chinese push to cast the blame for the pandemic elsewhere. Can you believe this? Can you believe this? Now, this is not Republican or Democrat. This is freedom here against totalitarian genocidal thugs. And we just got to be very, very clear. Secretary Blinken, or Secretary-designated Blinken, he'll be confirmed today, I believe, assures that we will consult with Israel and allies before returning to the Iran deal. He also assured that Jerusalem will remain the capital and recognized as such. And then domestically, yes, Trump granted clemency to 143 people last night, including Steve Bannon, the rapper Lil Wayne, former Detroit Mayor Kwame Kilpatrick, Rick Renzi of Arizona, former member of Congress, Duke Cunningham of California, former member of Congress. Both had already completed their prison terms. Robin Hayes of North Carolina, another congressman, finishing probation. Before finally signing the paperwork, the president spent much of Tuesday debating who to give pardons to and who not to. It happens every time. None of it will ever reach the level of the Clinton administration's pardon in terms of outrage. So don't spend a lot of time on that. Focus instead on the incoming administration and what they're about to do and undertake. More on that when we come back.